The fallen assassin. The rain fell hard on the roof of his small cabin. Daniel was just about to blow out the last candle when he heard a strange noise outside. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't the wind. It was heavy, slow, and then a loud thud right at his door. He froze for a moment, every sense alert. Out here in the wild zone, you didn't open doors for strangers. But something about that sound felt different. Not dangerous, but desperate. Daniel slowly grabbed his plasma tool from the shelf. He crept to the door and opened it, just a crack. Lying in the mud was a woman. Her skin had a strange shimmer, her body covered in bruises and blood. Weapons were strapped to her back. One arm was badly burned, but what truly caught his breath, her eyes. Even half closed and weak, they glowed with a power that made him step back. He had seen those eyes in news broadcasts and wanted lists. She was the galaxy's deadliest assassin. Her name was Niera, and she had just collapsed at his door. Daniel didn't know what to do. He could shut the door and pretend he never saw her, or he could help and risk everything. He looked down at her broken form as thunder rolled above. She was unconscious now, barely breathing, without help. She would die before sunrise. He sighed, placed his tool aside, and knelt beside her. Her body was cold, but not from the rain, it was shock. Daniel lifted her carefully and carried her. Inside, she was surprisingly light, but he could feel the tension in every muscle. Even near death, her body was ready to fight. He laid her on the old cot in the corner and quickly started a fire. He took out his old first aid kit, one he hadn't used in years. Her wounds were deep but clean, whoever she fought. They were skilled. Her breathing was shallow, and her lips barely moved. She muttered something in a language he didn't understand. Then silence. He cleaned her wounds, wrapped her arm, and checked for anything else. She had no tracker, no ID. Scars. Many scars. Each one told a story, and none of them seemed easy. The cabin was quiet, except for the crackling fire and rain tapping against the window. Daniel sat nearby, watching her chest rise and fall slowly. He wondered what led her here. Was she running from someone? Or was she sent here on purpose? Niera stirred in her sleep, her hand twitching as if holding an invisible blade. Daniel didn't move. She suddenly sat up halfway, eyes wide, her voice sharp. "Where am I?" she demanded, though her voice cracked with pain. "You're safe," Daniel said quietly, not wanting to alarm her. "You collapsed at my door." She looked around, eyes scanning every shadow of the cabin. Then she noticed her bandaged arm and narrowed her eyes at him. "You didn't tie me," she said, confused. "You could have. I don't tie people who need help." Daniel answered. For a moment, the assassin just stared. Then she leaned back slowly, her body relaxing just slightly. "I don't trust humans," she whispered. "Lucky for you," Daniel said with a dry smile. "I'm not most humans." She didn't smile back, but she didn't reach for her weapon either. That was progress. As the night wore on, the storm outside grew worse, but inside the cabin, the air was thick with silence and tension. Daniel gave her space. She closed her eyes again. Not sleeping, but watching from behind her lashes. She was calculating, measuring, trying to decide if he was worth sparing. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He stayed awake, not because he feared her, but because something about her felt important. Not just danger, but destiny. The galaxy's deadliest assassin had arrived at his door, and instead of chains, he gave her shelter. He had no idea how much his life was about to change. The storm passed by morning, but inside the cabin, the air was still heavy. Daniel made a small breakfast, nothing fancy, just warm food. Niera didn't touch it at first, only staring at him with suspicion. But her body was weak, and hunger finally won. She ate quietly, like someone who never trusted a meal to be safe. Daniel didn't speak much. He didn't want to scare her off, or push too hard, but questions swirled in his mind. Why would someone as dangerous as Niera end up broken and hunted? What could make the galaxy's top assassin fall like this? After eating, she sat near the fire and sharpened a knife she had taken from her boot. It was a small motion, slow and steady, but it showed she was recovering and watching everything. "I know who you are," Daniel finally said. Naira's hand paused, just for a second. Then she continued, sharpening, her voice calm. "Everyone does. You're not here to kill me, are you?" he asked, with a half-smile. She gave him a sideways glance. "If I was, you'd be dead already." Daniel nodded. "Fair." She stopped sharpening and looked into the fire. "You ever get tired of running?" she asked softly. Daniel blinked. "I don't run," he said. "Maybe I should." Naira didn't answer. She just stared at the flames as if they held memories too painful to speak aloud. Then she said something that made Daniel sit up. "Straighter. They betrayed me." Daniel waited, not saying anything. She kept staring at the fire. "The syndicate," she whispered. "They trained me, used me, made me kill anyone they wanted. But when I asked for freedom, they tried to erase me." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled. Daniel saw it. She wasn't just injured. She was broken, inside and out. "I destroyed their data vault," she said. "Took down one of their top commanders. Then they put a bounty on my head higher than any warlord in the quadrant, and sent my own team after me." Daniel leaned forward. "Your team?" She nodded slowly. "They were the closest things I had to family." They didn't hesitate. A long silence followed. The fire crackled softly. Outside, birds had returned to the trees, singing as if the world wasn't about to explode. Naira looked up at Daniel. "Why did you help me?" Daniel shrugged. "Because you needed help?" "That's stupid," she said, her tone harsh but not angry. "That's human," he replied simply, for the first time. Naira looked confused, not by his words, but by the fact that she believed him. She had been shown mercy before, but never without a price, and yet, here he was, a simple man in a broken cabin, giving without taking. That night, Daniel heard strange sounds outside again. He stepped out, his plasma tool in hand. He saw movement by the tree line too smooth to be an animal. He quickly returned inside and locked the door. "Someone's out there," he said. Naira stood, already alert. She grabbed a weapon from under her blanket and moved to the window. "They found me," she whispered. "How?" She pulled something small from her jacket pocket, barely the size of a pebble. "A tracer," she muttered, angry at herself. "They embedded it in my wound dressing." Daniel didn't waste time. He grabbed a bag and started throwing supplies inside, but Naira didn't move. She stood still, thinking, her eyes locked. "On the door. We're not running," she said. Daniel turned to her. "You just said they found you." "They'll never stop," she said quietly. "They'll chase us across worlds." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," she said, gripping her blade tightly, "it's time they learned I don't die so easily." Daniel paused. He had a choice: run and survive a little longer, or stand and fight beside the most dangerous woman in the galaxy. He looked into her determined eyes and nodded once. "I'll need more ammo," he said. She gave him a sharp look. "You're not a soldier." "No," he said, "but I'm human, and I don't leave people behind." Naira blinked. Something in her expression softened for a brief second. Then she turned back to the door, her voice hard again. "Then let's prepare." Outside, the syndicate hunters moved through the shadows. Inside, two unlikely allies sharpened blades and loaded weapons. The hunter was becoming the hunted, and the galaxy was about to remember why she was feared. Night returned, but this time it wasn't quiet. The forest outside Daniel's cabin held shadows that moved with purpose. Somewhere between the trees, the syndicate's hunters watched and waited. Naira sat cross-legged near the fire, her eyes closed but her senses sharp. Daniel checked their gear again: homemade traps, energy packs, and weapons he hadn't used since his old mercenary days. "I hear them," Naira said suddenly. Daniel paused. "Where?" "Everywhere," she whispered. "They're circling." Daniel felt a chill down his spine. "How many?" She opened her eyes. 3 to 5 close. More in the woods. He nodded and moved to the back door, locking it tight. This place won't hold, he said. It's not supposed to. Naira replied, standing up slowly. It's bait. Before Daniel could ask, she tossed him a small device. Press that if they break in, she said. It'll trigger the outer mines. You carry mines? He asked, surprised. She gave a faint smirk. I'm not called the deadliest assassin for my smile. Outside, the syndicate moved silently. They were trained shadows, sent to finish what the higher-ups had failed to do. They believed Naira was weak now, broken and alone. They didn't know about the human. They didn't expect resistance. An hour passed, then 2. The silence became suffocating, then glass shattered. Daniel spun, weapon ready. A hunter rolled into the cabin, fully armored, silent. Before he could raise his blaster, Naira was already in motion, with a swift movement. She sliced the man's arm, then struck his helmet hard enough to crack it. Another hunter came through the roof. Daniel fired, hitting him in the shoulder. The man dropped with a grunt. Smoke bombs followed, filling the cabin with a gray fog. Back door. Naira shouted, grabbing Daniel's arm. They rushed out the back, just as the cabin exploded behind them. The mines triggered, sending shockwaves into the night. Trees caught fire, lighting up the forest with orange glow that won't stop them long, Naira said as they ran. Daniel was breathing hard, but kept up. He had forgotten how this kind of life felt. The rush, the danger, the wildness. They reached a hidden cliffside cave, a place Daniel used long ago for hiding weapons. It was small, but dry and hard to find. Naira paced the space, checking her weapons and setting traps. Daniel sat down, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You're okay?" he asked. Naira nodded. "This is how I live," she said, "but it's different now." "How?" "I'm not alone," she replied, her voice quieter. Daniel looked at her for a moment, then said, "I didn't plan for this either." She turned toward him, eyes serious. "They won't stop." "I figured," he said. "They'll come with more force, more tech, more killers. I'm ready," Daniel said without hesitation. Naira studied him like she didn't understand why he wasn't running, but something in his calmness made her feel steady too. Later that night, they heard footsteps again, fast, armored, angry. The syndicate had found them, but this time, the assassin and the human were ready. The first 2 hunters entered the cave silently, but a flash trap exploded in their faces, blinding them. Naira dropped from above like a shadow, disabling them in seconds. Daniel fired from cover, keeping their exit blocked. More came, and the cave turned into chaos. Blades clashed, guns fired, smoke filled the air. Naira moved like a ghost, fast and brutal. But Daniel wasn't just watching, he fought too, protecting her flank, covering her blind spots. For the first time in years, she trusted someone to have her back. When the last hunter fell, groaning on the floor, Naira leaned against the wall, bleeding from her arm. Daniel moved to help, but she waved him off. "I'm fine," she muttered. "You're bleeding, still alive." She smirked weakly. Daniel looked around the ruined cave. They had won, but it felt like a warning, more than a victory. "This was a scout team," he said. Naira nodded. "They'll send more. We need to leave," he said. "No," she whispered. "We need to make them fear me again." She walked to the edge of the cave, her silhouette dark against the night sky. "Let's give them a reason to stop hunting," she said. Daniel stood beside her. "And if they don't, then we hunt them." Morning light spilled into the broken cave. Smoke still lingered from the night battle. Daniel sat on a rock, patching up his shoulder with shaking hands. Naira stood near the entrance, watching the forest through tired eyes. They had survived again, but now it felt like the whole galaxy was watching, waiting. "You need rest," Daniel said softly. Naira didn't turn. "I don't rest," she replied. "That's how they catch you. You're not alone this time," he reminded her. "That's the problem," she said under her breath. Daniel stood, walking closer. "You still don't trust me," Naira looked at him sharply. I don't trust anyone. He didn't argue. He just nodded and began packing their gear. Their plan was simple: strike first, leave a message, disappear again. They traveled through the woods silently. Naira walked ahead, her steps light and quiet. Daniel followed, alert but slower. He was strong, but not like her. She was trained for this life. He had just stumbled back into it. At midday, they reached an abandoned outpost hidden under a cliff. It was old, covered in vines and dust. Naira remembered it. This place once belonged to her team. Now it was empty, cold, and haunted by old memories. Inside, she moved like a ghost, checking corners, tracing fingers across rusty walls. Daniel set up a small camp in the corner. This place safe? He asked. For now, she said, but memories live here. She stood in front of a faded mark on the wall, a symbol from her old squad. I trained here, she said. I slept on this floor, learned to kill in that corner. Daniel looked around. It feels sad. It was once my home, Naira whispered, and they burned it when I left that night. As the fire crackled softly, a strange sound echoed outside. Not syndicate, not animal. It was a human voice, weak and desperate. Help. Someone. Daniel grabbed his weapon and peeked out. A girl, maybe 20, stumbled into view, clothes torn, bleeding from her leg. Naira grabbed her knife instantly. It's a trap. She's hurt, Daniel said. That doesn't mean she's innocent. Naira replied coldly, but Daniel didn't wait. He ran out and pulled the girl in, laying her near the fire. Who are you? He asked. My name's Ellen, she gasped. They ambushed my caravan. I ran. I didn't know where else to go. Naira stood in the shadows, arms crossed, silent and cold. Daniel treated Ellen's wounds, offering her water and warmth. But Naira's eyes never left her. Later, when Ellen fell asleep, Naira approached Daniel. She's lying. You don't know that? He said. I do, Naira said firmly. I've used that trick before. Daniel looked at her, tired and frustrated. You don't trust anyone, do you? You trusted me, she snapped. And you still don't know if that was a mistake. That hit hard. Daniel turned away, feeling the weight of those words. Maybe she was right. Maybe helping her was dangerous. Suddenly, Ellen moved, her hand reaching under her coat. Naira was faster. In a blink, she had her blade at the girl's throat. Stop, she hissed. The girl froze, wide-eyed, caught. A small device fell from her coat. Syndicate tech, a tracker. Daniel cursed under his breath. She was bait. Now they know exactly where we are, Naira growled. They tied Ellen up, but it was too late. A red light blinked on the device. Already sending their location. We need to go, Daniel said, grabbing his bag. Naira didn't move. She stared at Ellen with a look Daniel couldn't read. Betrayal, sadness. I told you, she said softly. Trust is a weakness. Daniel didn't respond. He helped her gather the gear and set explosives around the outpost. As they left, Naira looked back one last time, then pressed the detonator. The place where she once trained vanished in flames as they disappeared into the night. Daniel spoke. You were right. Naira glanced at him. I didn't want to be, she said. The forest had changed. It no longer felt like a place to hide. It felt like a maze built by enemies. Every shadow looked like a hunter. Every sound could be a weapon. Naira moved quickly, her step silent but sharp. Daniel followed close behind, his grip tight on the blaster. They had escaped the burning outpost. But now the syndicate would come with everything they had. We can't run forever, Daniel said. Breathing heavily, Naira nodded. Then we stopped running. She led him to a hidden bunker, buried deep beneath a fallen mountain ridge, a place once used by rebels during the old wars. Few knew of it. Even fewer survived it. There were secrets in its stone walls, some helpful, some dangerous. As they entered the underground tunnels, the silence grew heavier. Old lights flickered on as Naira hacked the controls. The hallway smelled of dust, oil, and memories. We'll set the trap here, she said. Daniel looked around. This place looks like it could collapse on us. If we do it right, it will collapse on them. She replied with a grim smile. They spent hours setting tripwires, bombs, EMP charges, and fallback routes. Naira taught him techniques she had learned from killers. Daniel listened, learned, and moved like a soldier again. Side by side, they prepared for war. But as the sun set above ground, Daniel noticed something. Naira was quieter than usual, not alert but distant. He approached carefully. "You okay?" She didn't answer at first, then said, "Tomorrow might be my last day." Daniel leaned against the wall beside her. "That's true for all of us," he said. "But you're not alone anymore." She looked at him, eyes softer than he had ever seen. "I've never trusted anyone this much," she whispered. "And that scares me more than the syndicate." Before he could respond, the silent alarms rang. "They're here," Naira said. Instantly back to her assassin mode, Daniel followed her to the command room. A small screen showed movement 6 armed soldiers in syndicate gear. More followed behind them. "They're expecting a fight," Daniel said. "No," Naira replied. "They're expecting surrender." The two slipped into their positions. The first wave entered the bunker, moving slow and cautious. Naira waited until they stepped on the pressure plate. Boom dust and fire filled the tunnel. Screams echoed down the stone halls. Daniel fired from the flank, taking out 2 more. Naira appeared like a shadow, silent and deadly. Within minutes, 5 bodies hit the floor, but the 6th didn't fall. He stood tall, heavier armor, glowing red visor. "General Vex," Naira growled. Daniel watched her face go cold. "You know him. He trained me," she said, "and he betrayed me." First, Vex raised a hand, and his voice filled the tunnels through a speaker. "Naira, you've made quite the mess, but it ends tonight. Come quietly, and the human lives." Daniel looked at her. "Don't," he said. Naira gripped her blade. "I'm done being controlled." She stepped into the open and called, "Out. I don't take orders anymore." A firefight exploded. Vex launched a drone swarm, forcing Daniel and Naira to retreat deeper. But they weren't running. They were leading him into the final trap. Naira activated the core chamber's seal, locking the heavy doors. Inside was a fusion battery rigged with explosives. "This bunker is our weapon," she said. Daniel blinked. "You want to trap him in here forever? He built me in this place," she said. "It's fitting he dies here," as Vex burst into the chamber. Daniel triggered the sequence, but the blast wouldn't kill him, it would bury him alive. The explosion roared, the ground shook, and the tunnel collapsed behind them. Daniel and Naira barely escaped through the old vent system. Covered in dust, coughing, but alive, they watched as the mountain settled. Burying the entrance, Daniel turned to her. "Did we win?" Naira stared at the ruins. "No," she said. "We survived, and they'll come again." But for the first time, Daniel saw something in her eyes. Not fear, not pain, but hope. She looked at him and said, "If you're still willing to stand by me, then maybe I don't have to do this alone anymore." The sun had risen over the shattered cliffs. Birds returned to the sky, but the earth still trembled from the night's destruction. Naira and Daniel stood at the edge of the old bunker ruins, silent. Ash and dust clung to their clothes, but both were alive. "You think he's dead?" Daniel asked. "Buried," Naira replied. "But men like Vex, they always find cracks to crawl out from." They moved away from the area fast, heading deeper into wild zones. There were no roads here, only broken trees and old battlefield scars. Naira walked ahead, her face cold again. Something in her had shifted after the battle. Daniel noticed it, but didn't push. By nightfall, they found a small alien shrine hidden under vines. It was old, glowing softly with blue stones and symbols neither of them could read. "I've seen these before," Naira whispered. "Long ago. You know what it is?" Daniel asked. She nodded. "This place was built by a lost race. They had secret some even the syndicate feared. Inside the shrine was a pedestal with a glowing orb. Niara stepped forward slowly, her hand hovering over it. It responds to certain DNA, she said. Then without warning, the orb blinked twice, then opened. Inside was a holochip and a small metallic pendant. Niara stared at it, then suddenly stepped back. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "My file," she said, voice shaking. "My real file." Daniel frowned. "I thought they erased your records." "They did," Niara whispered, "but this was made before they owned me." She activated the chip, and a voice filled the shrine. A woman's voice, kind and calm. "Designation, Project Seraphim," it said. "Subject, Niara, 017. Status Bio-Enhanced Hybrid. Code-locked memory layers remain sealed." Daniel's eyes widened. "You're not just an assassin." Niara's face went pale. "I was created," she whispered, "modified, built to serve a purpose." "But what purpose?" Daniel asked. She didn't answer. She turned away, hiding the tremble in her hands. The pendant in her palm glowed faintly, responding to her presence. The moment was interrupted by a soft beep from Daniel's comband. He looked down. An encrypted signal was trying to break through. He let it through cautiously. A fuzzy voice came through the static. "Daniel, it's me." Daniel froze. "Yalan," he whispered. Niara turned around quickly. "Who's Yalan?" "He was my squad leader." Daniel replied. "He died in the war." "No," the voice said. "I went underground." "I've been watching." "Daniel, you have to listen carefully. Niara is not what you think." Daniel's heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" "She was programmed to bond with a target," Yalan continued, "to learn from them, then betray them at the right time." Daniel looked at Niara, stunned. Niara stepped forward, panic rising in her voice. "That's not true. I don't remember that." "I didn't know." Yolan kept speaking. "She was a weapon. Daniel, she still might be. They call it Protocol Seraphim Emotional Trigger. Trust-based infiltration." Daniel stepped back slowly, his eyes filled with confusion, anger, and pain. "Is that why you're still here?" he asked her. Niara shook her head. "No, I didn't know. I swear, I feel real. This isn't a program." Daniel didn't answer. He walked out of the shrine, needing space. Niara followed, but kept her distance. "I never wanted to lie," she said softly. "I didn't even know who I was, but how can I trust you now?" Daniel asked. She lowered her head. "I can't make you, but I'll stay away if that's what you want." Daniel said nothing for a long time. Then, without turning, he said, "If it's true, then you were made to destroy people like me, but somehow, you saved me instead." She looked up at him, eyes wet. "You saved me too, far away, in a dark syndicate chamber." General Vex removed his cracked helmet. His face was burned, but alive. "She found the shrine," he muttered, "so the truth is out." Another voice in the shadows spoke. "Shall we activate the final protocol?" Vex's eyes burned with rage. "Yes," he whispered. "Let her finish what she was born to do." The night was quiet again. Too quiet. Daniel sat by a small fire, far from any road or city. He kept glancing toward the trees, waiting to see if Niara would return, but she hadn't. After the shrine, after the truth, she had vanished. She said she needed time to think, time to understand who she really was. Not the syndicate's weapon, not just an assassin, not just what a chip told her to be. Daniel didn't try to stop her, but her absence left an ache in his chest. A strange one, deep, quiet, and heavy. He wasn't sure if she would come back, but she did. Just before sunrise, Niara stepped out from the forest, her armor dusty, her blade still strapped to her back. But her eyes were different, clear, calm. She walked slowly, as if each step was a choice. Daniel stood up, not saying anything. He just waited. "I remembered something," she said quietly. "Not from the files, not from the programming. From before all that." Daniel nodded for her to go on. "I was just a child when they took me," she said. I had a name, a family, a sister. They erased it all, but that one memory of holding my sister's hand, it came back last night, and I realized they didn't create me completely. They just buried who I was. Daniel stepped closer. You're more than what they made. She looked into his eyes. I want to live like a person, not a tool. But to do that, I need to stop them. Daniel already knew what she meant. Vex wasn't dead. The Syndicate still controlled systems across the stars and Protocol Seraphim. It was just one project of many. I'll go with you, he said. Naira's eyes widened a little. You don't have to. I know, he replied, but I choose to. So they moved again, this time not to hide, but to strike. They traveled to a hidden facility built into the side of a cold mountain. Naira remembered the layout. It was where they trained the first generation of Seraphim. If they shut it down, it would send a message. Guards spotted them, alarms rang. But Naira was faster. She moved like a storm, silent, deadly, but no longer heartless. She didn't kill everyone this time. Only those who refused to surrender. Daniel provided cover, using tech and strategy. They reached the control center and uploaded the real files, proof of what the Syndicate had done. They sent it to media across the galaxy, to rebels, outlaws, and even governments. The truth would no longer be hidden, but just before they could escape, Vex appeared. Half his face was covered in metal. His voice was cold. You betrayed your purpose, he said. You were born to kill, not to feel. Naira stepped forward. I wasn't born to kill, she said. You made me that way, but I chose who I am now. The fight was brutal. Vex was stronger, enhanced, and furious. But Naira had something he didn't. Free will, and someone by her side, with Daniel's help. She brought Vex down, not with rage, but with focus. In the end, she stood over him, blade to his throat. But she didn't finish him. She turned away. Let him live with the truth, she said. That he lost the one thing he thought he controlled. They walked out of the burning base, free at last, not running, not hiding. They disappeared from the public eye after that. Some said they retired to a quiet moon. Some said they trained others in secret. But those who had seen her, those who were saved by her, knew one thing. The galaxy's deadliest assassin had become something else. A protector, a fighter, a human in spirit. And beside her, always, was the man who gave her shelter, not chains, trust, not fear, and in doing so, changed the future of stars. Asterisk.